How's it going, everybody? It's Man of Tomorrow here. I want to thank you guys for coming through. We're going to be doing this live debate coverage tonight. I know you're going to see a lot of politically ignorant personnel who also want to do live debate coverage when they never cover anything else in the actual political spectrum throughout the rest of the year. I think that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, this is a place where people actually take sides and actually participate in the actual process itself. So that way you don't have to go around looking like a fool pretending that you're part of a process that you're clearly not a part of. We're going to be having some people come through if they hit the link. I think we're going to be looking at PBS actual coverage of the actual debate itself, even though it's going to be simulcasted on ABC everywhere. As you know, ABC is owned by Disney, and so I don't think nobody will be live streaming Disney Plus stuff and all that kind of other stuff. So that's just where we're at. Um, my predictions is that we're probably going to have a more strategic Trump tonight. I think the media is going to do everything they can to try to make the race close, which is to try to upplay Donald Trump's actual contributions to the actual debate, while he probably won't be answering any questions. And Kamala Harris probably going to be stuck holding the bag trying to explain policy and everything else, like most people on the left always do. They're the ones stuck out here always trying to discuss policy while everybody else discusses nonsense. And we're the only ones who have to bring policy to the table. They never ask the Conservative Party what policies that they're bringing to the table. That's never been the case. No one right now is even concerned about what the Conservative Party has done or is doing about inflation. Why? When you're a conservative, you're not held to such standards. You're not held to such standards. Not as a conservative, you're not. And, when it comes to most things, that's just the way it is, man. There's not really much you can do other than just make sure you get your stuff together and move to a left wing area where things are actually taken care of appropriately, and you'll be fine. Or, I'm talking about left wing area, left wing legislature. Don't be like a lot of these people who live in these left wing areas in highly right wing environments, and they expect all this stuff to happen from the government, and it just clearly doesn't end up to be happening at all. Period. So again, the only people who complain about the actual political process are the people who are never actually participating in the political process itself. That's always been the case. Yo, what's going on? Lil Rock, Craig the Tech Guy, Senku, Uncle Stu, what's going on? Sweet Melodies. Mia? Damn, I thought you stopped live streaming. Yeah, it's the way it is. I mean, but look, like all this stuff just really isn't that difficult to follow. If you continuously follow it, it's really not that hard to follow. So let me set up here. Give me a couple minutes. Let me set up here, get this live stream going, and I'll be right back with you. So hold on a second. You're gonna hear some silence for a couple minutes, but I'm setting up my actual laptop right now. So I'll be back. All right. What's going on, son? Yeah, man. Take care of your real life, man. Yeah, man. Don't be sticking around here. You got some real life stuff going on. Go take care of that. Let me switch from my phone to my laptop real quick. The polls right now seem to be widening the margin for the most part. But the only best poll in the world is actual participation. So I wait on other people to represent you. All right. All right. Get us some PBS up in us.
Back. The candidates face off as voters worry about the economy, conflicts at home and abroad, and the future of the country. A PBS News special, the ABC News Presidential Debate Simulcast, Tuesday, September 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central.
This is from PBS. Still waiting on them to come through. Look like they're walking to the stage right now. Like I said, my predictions is I think we're gonna see a more strategic Trump. Oh, gone. What's going on, man? on, man?
Hey, MOT, what's going on, brother? What's the good word, man?
Chilling out here, man, waiting for these people to
Hey, MOT, what's
come
going on,
through.
brother? What's the
Let me got some background echo in the background to go.
Yeah. I just clicked it back. Yeah. I fell in. So yeah, we gonna check some of this out here, man. We gonna check some of this out here, my brother.
They normally be playing the sound. They ain't playing the sound during this right here. I don't know what's up with all this celebration, man. It's supposed to be a debate. What's going on
Man,
here?
hey, listen. This is one of the big events. This is of the biggest events you gonna see this year, bro. So this is big. This is huge, man. This is huge. This is gonna be big, man. This is a big one. This is a big one. So
I'm gonna go to C-SPAN 2. It looks like C-SPAN 2 is having it.
all right, let's see.
Debate. So there are the swing states and Washington Post polling. We showed you a little bit from the New York Times polling ahead of tonight's debate. Of course, people, the candidates, the voters, the media will all be
What's going on,
looking
Jay
at the
Charles? What's going on,
polls
Ike? What's going on, Lil Rock? What's
post-debate
going on,
as
Joseph
well.
Majors?
Ernest
Make sure I
in
like the
Georgia,
button.
Democratic
Like
caller.
button while coming in. It look like they're still taking
Ernest, you
calls.
with us in Georgia? We're listening to you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what do you want to hear from the candidates tonight?
Yeah, I would like to hear how ex-president apologized for January the 6th. Even though he feels that what he did.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. The ABC debate is beginning. We'll take
Yep.
you there now.
Get them out of there.
Get him out of there. Get him out of there.
Upended just weeks ago, President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris.
Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon.
What the fuck are we listening to?
The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have.
China bought their chips from Taiwan?
They have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window.
Trump.
She's going
Trump
to my
Trump.
philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get
pro-life
it,
position.
and now
They don't
states
believe
are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote.
No, they didn't.
And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach.
The Supreme Court voted that down, though.
Her boss went out.
The Supreme
and
Court.
said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out,
We're going to
got
break this down
rejected
later.
again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because
threw him under the
she'd
bus,
never be
right.
able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I
What?
have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it.
No, he
I have
hasn't.
been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Man, she just
Okay,
told
can
you that it
do
wasn't true.
Why don't you ask her that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor.
They already cleared this up earlier.
Listen to what this fool is
We
saying.
put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central
Here
America.
we go. Let's get it.
We know
Let's
that
get it.
illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board.
Why'd you kill the bill, bro?
To the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's busting them in and paying them to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take
talk about the
country
rallies.
back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation.
Trump.
And it happened 3.5 years ago.
You're not supposed to be talking about rallies.
What's going on here, you're going to
Please
end
stop.
World War III, just to go into another subject, what they have done.
Somebody throw that dude some hand signals. You're not supposed to be talking about rallies right now.
Look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
A noun and a verb and those fucking Mexicans, man. I swear this all this dude got.
That came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far
This is the
as
bullshit they talk about on right-wing radio
the reason
about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio.
They want to bring
which is
our
fucking
country
crazy.
back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio. And ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant
Fact check.
Well, I've seen people on
Fact check.
Oh, shit. People on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for
What
a city
the
manager.
fuck is this
But
guy
the people on television saying my dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Oh my God.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest
We'll
of it.
find out, motherfucker. He already asked them.
About extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former secretary of defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know
is
the
he
parents
talking
and
about,
the
man?
family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the
His
most
mind is gone.
incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire them. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With
He
nobody
never
else can
answered the
they?
question
But
on
they have done
getting in the
such a poor
way
job.
of the border
And they
bill.
never
He never
fire
answered it.
anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Why the fuck?
What
Yeah.
the fuck is this guy?
Why?
To talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal
what's going on here, man?
that the vice president has
Well, what's
reacted
going on
to as
here?
well.
My God.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists.
Dude,
they
they're
allowed
baiting you into doing this
common
shit.
street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United
It's like
States
a rat to the
and
cheese.
told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this.
That's why they putting the question on the
Destroyed
screen, man.
Fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and
Oh,
all over the
Melody.
world, crime is down.
It's a
all
sweet
over the world
melody.
except here.
I'm
Crime
back.
here is up
Oh,
and through
sweat.
the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities
What?
with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump,
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick
They're
response to your Vice
fake.
President Harris on this
He's-
notion of
he's-
weaponization of the
He's
justice
going for the
system.
bait, bro.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
We gotta
This is the
continue
one
here.
that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They
What?
talk about
Those are all people.
a threat to democracy.
Come on,
They're
man.
a threat
Come
to
on,
democracy.
man.
Russia
We
investigation
do have a lot to
that
get to.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President
Oh,
Harris, in your last run for
what?
president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction.
How
And I
much?
built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
She didn't say
Does that
shit.
sound familiar?
The fuck?
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of.
Man,
Now
what
she
the
wants to
fuck is
do
this? It's the vice
transgender
president?
operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is
Yeah,
a
man.
radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns.
He's
and
talking
she will
strictly
never
to his
allow
Confiscate your
base.
fracking in
guns
Pennsylvania.
and
If she won the election,
put
fracking in
transgender people
Pennsylvania
everywhere.
will
Okay.
end on day
Makes
He's
one.
sense.
talking strictly
Just to
to his
finish, one
base.
thing
He's
so important in
he's
my
not
opinion.
appealing to the middle of the road.
I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before.
He got the oil business
They
going.
took when they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4
What
times,
the-
5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice.
God
Because
damn
the
it. Could they put
prices
the
of
question back
energy
on the screen, man?
were
I'm fucking lost,
quadrupling
bro.
and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline.
He-
So they
he's-
said, let's go back to Trump. But if she
he-
won the election, the
I just
day
passed the
after
gas
that
station.
election,
I'm outside
they'll
of
go
St.
back to
Louis.
destroying
Gasoline
our
is
country, and
$2.96.
oil
No,
will
no.
be dead. Fossil
Diesel is
fuel will be dead.
$2.96.
We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back
Mm.
to solar.
Some
where
Bush
they need a
administration
whole
shit.
desert to get some
Mm.
energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues that
things
we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
What
Man,
the
shut the
hell
fuck
is
up.
this?
Have an election
What is
in
this guy
just
talking
56
about?
days.
I don't
And
know,
I
bro.
want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which is
Here we
the
go.
cornerstone of democracy
Shit.
and the role of a president
Here
in a
it
moment of
comes.
crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Oof.
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should
Are
have
you
never,
listening to this?
ever shot her.
Are
It's
you?
a disgrace. But we didn't
Oh,
do
oh
this
my
group
God.
of
Just
people
listen,
that have
listen.
been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by
Hey,
it.
man,
In
this
fact,
is
she
about
said at the
January
beginning,
6th, bro.
"Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world.
We
David.
got it, man.
All
Mexicans
over
are
the
here,
world.
bro.
And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me
But
just
when
ask
are
you.
those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned
Jesus
down
Christ.
Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in
Jesus.
Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a
Jesus
big
Christ.
percentage of the city
Is
of
there
Seattle.
anything
When are
Donald
those
Trump
people going to
regret
be
about what he
prosecuted?
did on January
But let me
6th?
just ask
You might ask her that
You
question.
were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up
Oh
for a
my
speech. I
God.
said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi
This dude
and
is
the
Cinnamon
mayor
Toast
of
Crunch, bro.
Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have
What?
never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't.
What?
Nancy Pelosi was responsible for fucking security? The Speaker of the House?
President Harris to respond.
This man is out of his mind. He's out of his
I
mind.
was the vice president elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, The former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was
What
where
the
bloodbath
fuck?
was.
Oh,
that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the
these fucking Mexicans.
And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on.
What
come
the
on
fuck
down to the
is
office.
this dude talking about?
If he signs a bill that the
What
border
the
is closed,
fuck
all he has to
is
do is
this,
say it to
man?
the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that
You
lost
did say
in
that.
2020?
I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it.
What?
We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They
What?
can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically.
You heard
And
what he
these
said?
people are
Did you see
trying
what he
to
just
get
said?
them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a
Oh my
person,
God. Oh
smart.
my God.
Prime Minister of Hungary.
He
They
did.
said, why is the
No,
whole
he didn't.
world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said,
Viktor
because
Orban.
you need Trump back as president.
A
They were
Nazi.
afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems
what type of
when
person
Trump
is he?
was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million.
Dude, he's taking all
chill,
the
man.
He got 0 votes.
He's taking all the bait.
She
He's
was the
taking all.
first one
He's
to
taking
leave.
all the bait.
Failed.
That's why
And now
Kamala
she's
is laughing.
running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people,
this dude is straight
Israel,
bugging.
Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it. because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, is paying a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Wow.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to play something here. We're going to play a very disgusting and despicable individual. Fair use. But there was somebody who just admitted that he lost the election, and somebody didn't like that. So why don't we do this? This is Nick Fuentes, the guy that BGS Itmore says that is going to be providing things to black boys within less than 4 years from now.
What an idiot.
Oh yeah, man. So let's hear from Nick Fuentes. Let's hear from Nick Fuentes real quick. So let's hear this. Let's hear this.
But they banned me from streaming for years. I had my banking account frozen. I'm banned from 5 banks. Airlines, was put on a federal no-fly list.
Okay. This guy is crying because Donald Trump finally admitted that he, actually lost the 2020 election. And this dumbass put up his own money, got blacklisted everywhere, lost his livelihood for being involved in white supremacist attempts to overthrow the 2020 election. And that's not all this guy did, okay? This is Nick Fuentes, a notorious...
That's what I'm saying. And also, there's something else that's going on here. So let's play this quick news clip because people seem to think. Notice I haven't said too much about the Aurora Venezuelan situation. That's because the shit isn't fucking happening. So why don't we listen to the local news talk about the Aurora situation right now? Since the Mexican are coming, according to Trump.
There are Coloradans at the center of a national media frenzy right now, and they're worried it's putting them in danger. Conservative media and politicians say their apartment building's been taken over by a Venezuelan gang. Or police say that's not true. And the people living there gathered today to say their biggest challenge is their landlord. That area of Northwest Aurora has long struggled with crime and poverty. Today, our Evan Krugel went to the building where neighbors say the political fury has added a new problem for folks who have plenty of them already.
And if anybody who lives in Aurora, that is 6th Avenue and Dayton, no rational human being would ever live in that area. But
inside the hallways at 1268 Dallas Street, music bounces off the walls.
Una salsa.
It's why Carlos Ordoscoidi chose to live here.
Tengo 3. 2 niños y una niña.
When he left his 3 kids in Venezuela to try and provide for them in America.
Mucha gente buena, aquí vivimos padres trabajadores, aquí vinimos a trabajar, entonces no es justo que nuestros derechos se vean vulnerados por una minoría.
Carlos's home is now in the spotlight after this video surfaced last week showing people carrying guns inside. Conservative media and politicians claimed Venezuelan gangs had taken over the complex.
We've got Venezuelan gang members who have gone into an apartment complex and now they're intimidating the tenants there to pay them the rent and probably extort other things from them.
The city's interim police chief says gangs are not taking rent.
El alcalde está fuera de órbita.
Carlos says he doesn't know the people in the video and says reports the buildings are overrun with gangs are greatly exaggerated.
Si lo que pasó en ese video, vuelvo y repito, lo que está ahorita, porque fue aquí, no hay que negarlo, no se sabe en realidad el motivo por qué esas personas llegaron ahí. pero yo no he visto que estén invadiendo, yo no he visto que estén cobrando renta. En realidad yo no lo he visto.
He says all the attention has put his community in danger, with calls on social media for people to come here and confront the so-called gang members.
Venezuelan gangs, we're here to chase you off. This is our communities.
Ahorita sí siento un poco de temor por lo que se está viendo. La xenofobia.
Oh my God.
Like, dude, there ain't no white people that live in that fucking area. That area. White people don't know how to drive down the streets there. Oh, hold on. Oh shit, the debate's back. Hold on.
You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president. Okay, they respect me. They don't respect.
He
Biden.
has no answer.
Why?
No
For
plan.
what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They
You're
don't even
supposed
try
to be
to
talking
get it.
about how you're
That
supposed
is
to
a
end it,
war
bro.
that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect,
How?
and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president?
Oh, you
But we have a
concerned now?
president
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to
Oh, my
clarify
God.
the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to
What the-
stop all
nigga,
of these
yes or
human
no?
lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal.
You're not making no sense, sir.
In my opinion,
We got to
the
move
most
on to some other
embarrassing
shit.
moment in the history of our country. And by the way,
They got to move on, man. This is
shit
is whack.
Incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country.
Oh,
Mr.
here
President,
we
you
go.
recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago.
Oh, shit. Oh,
now
shit.
she's
Oh,
becoming known as black.
they here.
I want to ask
Oh,
a
they
bigger
here.
picture question here tonight.
Oh, shit, they here.
Why do you believe
Oh,
it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less.
He used to want to
Whatever
make
she
a big
wants to
deal
be
out
is
of it.
okay with me.
Hold on a second.
But those were your words. So I'm
I don't
asking,
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Everyone was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned land. He owned buildings. And he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States.
Ah, shit.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country. And they come up with things like what you just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back
That's all you have to say
years,
about Central
40,
Park
50
5?
years ago.
That's what I say about
Because it's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, pour some milk on them.
And remember this.
Yeah, man, he gonna rebuild that
You know, she's
cocoa
trying to get away from Biden. I
market
don't know
in
the
prison,
gentleman.
man.
She says,
Yeah.
she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time
bro,
home
them Trump
buyers.
faces, man.
That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want
His
tonight,
diaper, his
as
diaper's
opposed
getting
to a
full. That's the
conversation
problem.
that is constantly
He's
about
filling up his diaper right
belittling
now.
and name calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking
What?
in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her
Look at
president took
this.
just recently.
This man's crazy.
President
Because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
This is getting tiring,
Yeah,
man.
I'm sorry. We're gonna move on, Vice President Harris.
To what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also
Oh,
known
God.
as Obamacare. You
Oh,
have failed to
shit.
accomplish that.
Shit.
You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today.
Okay.
And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in this administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not
What
have
the
a plan.
fuck?
I have concepts of a plan.
He has
I'm not
concepts.
president right now.
I have concepts of a plan.
If we come
Concepts
up
of a
with
plan.
something, I would
All
only
right,
change it
anyway.
if we
All
come
right,
up with
all right,
something that's
all
better
right,
and less
all
expensive. And there are concepts and options we
Better and
we
less
have
expensive would be the
to
public
do
option.
that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
You'll be
Vice
hearing about
President
my
Harris, in
non-existent.
2017,
You'll be hearing
you
about my
supported
You'll be hearing about it
proposal to
soon.
do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being,
shit.
you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass his
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue
Well,
that's important for a
She
lot
made
of
a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years, but it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money.
Where's
But
your
she won't
plan?
improve
He has no plan. He has no plan.
That's
He just
another
keeps
thing
saying
she
that.
doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for
Man,
insurance.
cut him off. Cut him
That
off.
have
Cut his
worked
ass
hard
off. Keep him
and
moving.
made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's
This
important for a number
guy's
of Americans, in
effing
particular
up
younger
terribly.
voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving.
What?
They're building big auto
No,
plants in
that
Mexico,
shit's
in many
crazy.
cases
That's
owned
crazy.
by China. They're building these
Didn't
massive
happen.
plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing
boy.
because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of
Trump, what the fuck?
Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
What the
We'll be right back
fuck
with
is
closing
this
statements
guy?
from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News
Who?
presidential debate
Boy.
from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Wow. Who?
All
Somebody.
right.
Okay.
Man,
Campaigning on conspiracies. That's a great
man.
quote. This is about some. This guy, I know he's effed up, but this is bad. This is pretty bad right here, man. I mean, and he's just
But the
running on.
conservatives will come out and say that this dude won a debate no matter what happened.
Oh, well, listen, you're talking. You know, if you're talking to his base, he can say whatever he wants to his base, and they're gonna go with it. But when you start to look at the people that are looking to matter in this election, who will be coming out, new voters, people who are middle of the road or whatever, they're not going with this madness, man.
Of course,
They're not going with this madness. They're not going with this madness. This for him was a train wreck. He cannot run on his record.
You don't have a record.
He can't run on it, so he's
All right,
got to
man.
run around it. Go ahead.
So since we were talking about John McCain, man, let's go back to that thumbs down, man.
Thank you.
This is when John McCain gave the Affordable Health
Mr.
Care.
Peters.
This was great.
Mr. Portman. Mr. Reed. Mr. Peters.
Watch John. Watch John. No.
Mr. Portman.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down. Got him.
Can't. And he stepped. And he stepped off. And he stepped off.
Left.
That was the end of that. And
Hey man, but just remember when the Hell's Angels was supposed to come save that apartment complex in Aurora because these people were, the hood got taken over, and these nice people from California was just gonna roll out there and take the community back. Like, dude, right wing talk radio has no bounds over how much they can make people look stupid, and it's not even a problem.
well, they've been doing that since Rush. They've been doing that since Rush Limbaugh took over, man.
Man.
You remember him. You remember him well. You remember him. But anyway, this is where we're at with this, and this was once again another kind of incoherent kind of rambling out here pointing the finger, and I mean, when you fact check this guy, this is going to be ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So
yeah, but I didn't think that I would get like a strategic Trump along with incoherent Trump at the same time. Like I thought it was going to be an either or. I didn't think I was going to get a mesh of continuously trying to get your shit off multiple times, no matter what the question is.
he couldn't answer him, and then wish he really nailed him. And this is where, if he was going to be, his best point was to try to get her on the border, and then when she nailed him with "you guys," you killed the bill. In fact, that's what Biden had brought up. President Biden had brought up during his State of the Union address. Hold on one second. You guys are talking about you want a border bill. You guys are killing it. You guys killed it. What's up with that?
They gave them everything that they wanted in the border bill too, and they still voted against it.
And they still voted, and it was on the behest of Trump.
Yeah, good key. Yeah,
Going to his people, on the floor and saying, "Vote it down," and he ran from it. Tonight he ran from that.
I think immigration is just that big of a fucking issue. Like, it ain't. Sorry.
And then he couldn't answer it, and then he lied. So I don't see, listen, his base is going to listen to, whatever. We're not talking about his base. Trump is at a solid 47%, 46%, 47%. That's his base. That's his ceiling. It's tall ceiling, but that's his ceiling. He's not going any higher than that. And others are going to look at this and say, what is this? What is he talking about?
Who could say that they watched this debate and Trump killed? Like, who the fuck would do that? All right, but we back up.
Davis. Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan.
She gave
what
a
these
lot of way
people
to
have
talent.
done to our country, and maybe
Fear
toughest of all
mongering
is
at its
allowing
worst.
millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Boy. What else? That was rough.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. That's finally over. Okay.
Finalmente.
Which was worse, the acceptance speech at the RNC or Donald Trump's performance here today? Which was worse?
I think they were both on par, but I think tonight, you know, where he was supposed to really kind of come in there and say a few things, at least cover himself, he utterly failed.
Do you think Donald Trump did any debate prep at all for this?
Okay, this is my view. I believe they prepped him, but I do not believe he could stay on. He could stay on message, and the only reason why I believe he couldn't do it because I thought Kamala did a very good job by pushing his buttons and getting him to jump off of his lily pad. And multiple times say, "You froggy, leap," and he got froggy and started leaping, and got out of the overall basic script he needed to stick to, and he couldn't stick to it. And you know, they are definitely vulnerable on on his record. He's vulnerable. So they were coming at him on his record, and he was trying to spin away from that and trying to put the attack on Kamala, where he actually came after her personally again, and they got into the whole color thing once again and all. I mean, he just jumped in those big those bear traps that they had laying for him. So and which left him ineffective as being able to really, lay forth any type of vision or whatever, anything that he had. He showed you, he basically showed you they had nothing, that they didn't have
But
anything.
he was so busy being on the attack, he never got to why he's running for president, other than bad, economy bad, Mexicans are coming, the Haitians are sprinkling, dipping cats in like honey mustard and just eating them raw, like crazy shit.
Crime is up at the
Yeah.
highest and all that. I mean, all of this stuff, preaching gloom and doom and fear, and saying I am alone. I'm the lone man who can save you. And
No.
he
Red asked the
wasn't.
question. Will there be another debate? No, unless it's on Fox News. And I wouldn't go for a Fox News debate. I would not fall for the actual. I wouldn't do that.
There's no need. I have to give ABC credit. They did go straight down the line and ask questions on both, and they were not able to really. They were not in the business of trying to put their thumb on the scale. So I gave them credit on that, and they kind of let things run straight down the center and let people do what they did. And I believe Trump hung himself. I do not think he had a very good performance here, because he didn't have the facts, and he didn't have any positions that he could really hang his on his. If he's going to have a new administration, he couldn't hang his hat on anything that he was able to.
This is so bad.
Say. He had
Renaissance man. What's going on, man? Like, you watch the debate, man. What did you see? What did you see?
No. I was talking. I talked to Go before the debate.
Yeah.
And I was talking to other people, and it kind of went how I thought it was going to go. Like I said, mic's off. I actually think the mic's.
Oh shit, my bad.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Right.
No, I was gonna say, no, I watched, the mic's off. Like I said, I thought that actually helped her because, it kind of kept Trump checked. But, the first debate when you saw Biden in the side by sides and they're looking at the pictures, Trump just looked bad. Even from the beginning, you could just see the guy had on too much makeup. He looked old, and
why did he have that face on the entire time, man? Like he didn't want to be there. Like,
oh no, he didn't.
Like he had the same face on that he had in that fucking mugshot of his.
He doesn't.
It's like he was posing.
Dude, he did not want to do this. He knew where this was going. Like, you saw the whole time. The thing that I think really sealed it too at the end, when you see his close, it's like, dude, you didn't have a closing statement. Like,
he didn't.
You ran on how bad America. I'm like, dude, at a certain point, someone pointed this out. Like, if you win a presidential election, you win on like hope or optimism. Like, Reagan had the whole morning in America.
It's morning in America. That's right. That's right.
Barack Obama ran on hope. Even he ran on like change of like, hey, I'm going to shake things up. I'm going to do this. I'm a, oh wow, they actually did shake hands, which is crazy because I didn't think they did. No, that's before the debate. I take it back. That was before. He was. Yeah. No, I was gonna say the other thing is too. He's running on negativity. You can't. I mean, who has run a negative campaign of like the world is ending, and if you elect me, like
it'll be fine.
It's not like I said. Trump ran the first time on hey, pretty much like Biden ran on returning to normalcy. She's running on basically turning the page. Trump was basically running on 16 on like basically kind of a what do you have to lose? I'm a businessman. Hey, I'm outsider. I'm gonna come and create change. And
like, a businessman.
I am a businessman.
Yeah, like I just I don't think Trump won a single point in this debate. His answers were just like, he never provided any details. He never even talked about like what his policies were. Like Harris at least talked about like, hey, I'm going to do things for small business. I'm going to build housing. We've negotiated. We're going to continue to expand upon healthcare, child tax credit. Like she at least laid out policies. Like Trump just talked about like things were great 4 years ago and I'll do it again. And then talked about like a concepts of a healthcare plan. This is bad.
He said concepts, and what are those concepts?
Concepts of a plan, man.
He couldn't even mention
concepts of a plan. 9 years,
but hold on a second.
Concepts of a plan.
After 9 years, he comes up with concepts of a plan, and he couldn't even mention what the concepts were. Yeah. Okay. Now, this last thing I want to say here very quickly, and this was very key. What Kamala did here was really run on an issue of character. Yeah. And this is the key thing here was to have the character of a president. The character. It's your character that has to speak for why you also are in this job. Your character has to speak to that. And this man was lying, being furtive, being also talking divisively and so forth. His character is bad. His character came off bad, and Kamala really outshined him here. This is when you have to look at the character of the person that you're looking at. Who are you going to buy from? Who do you want to sit down and talk to? Who do you want to hang out with for a little bit and say, hey, listen, what do you have going on? Let's talk about some things. Kind of clearly here. You want to talk to somebody who's going to talk to you straight and somebody who you feel like you can really kind of jive with and really kind of get with and feel like this person is on my side. And that's a lot of that is a character issue. His character flaws came through very, very bad here. And that was somewhat of the intangible of which she was able to touch on and kept it there and really did keep it there, and where Trump just went in for these big giant how would I say bear traps or pitfalls that he's going to fall into because he's got some very serious character issues.
She baited him a couple times too. When she talked about crowd size, he went right to that. And then when he talked about how much money he inherited, he was like, "Oh, it was a lot." Like, dude, it's like if you were prepping this dude for debate. Oh, I've got Tulsi Gabbard coming to prep me for a debate. It's like, dude, you basically tell this guy, okay, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Don't step on the mousetrap. It's like
step on the big mousetrap, put even bigger banana in the tailpipe. God, no, Trump,
no. He fell for the banana in the dual tailpipe.
In the
dual exhaust.
Dual exhaust. Two of them up in there.
It's like, dude, it's like, oh, I'm literally setting the trap. I'm watching you put the cheese on the mouse trap, and then I'm going to go and literally step on it.
You know what? That cheese sure did look delicious.
Just really looking at this and breaking this down from a substance standpoint. She had greater substance to what she was talking about as far as how she worked. And then from the character standpoint, the character of a leader of one who you want to be president, somebody who's got my back, even if you don't support me, if I make this presidency, I got your back. I'm with you. You see, you gotta be able to come off. You gotta be able to come off like that, and that's the problem. That's the problem with the former president. He's very poor. He was very poor in that regard, and you saw his face grimacing and angry.
All the time, like he purposely looked like he was wincing in pain. He was just listening to it, and it's like, bro, listen. All right, so here's the other thing. This is why I keep telling you guys, there is no such thing as a black conservative. There is no such thing.
Well, I've been saying that
All that
since
black
day one.
conservative support that was supposed to be there for Donald Trump, how did that shit just evaporate like it wasn't even there as soon as Kamala Harris and Tim Walz came on the fucking ticket? Because it was always fake. Just like here. These people are pro Keisha conservatives, man. I don't get that. But that's just where we at, man. So any last words before we get out of here? Like I don't think there's gonna be another debate. I think
No,
that
they won't let them. No, the only debate that may happen is the one in October with JD Vance and Tim Walz. They will not let them crew back on a debate. They didn't want to do this one. They did not want to do this one. Trump hurt himself in this debate. There is no question about it. It's just, and you can't even say that like the moderators did such a good job. Like Trump got the last word on a bunch of questions. That's the thing.
He did.
So you can't say like, oh well, they weren't being fair. It's like they actually asked him like, oh, President Trump, you said this specifically, like, and you can't really sit up here and deny it. And then, like I said, you got to finish with him on the question. So I don't spin it. There are going to be tons of memes from this. Her abortion answer was really good. There was another one where she did really well in pivoting when she was talking about like criminality, and she pivoted and brought up his convictions, and he was like, "Oh, run a special," and all these cases we went to trial, and it's like, dude, you could have even brought up the other day he had conservatives upset because he admitted he lost in 2020. I'm like,
yes, yeah.
You just said you lost the other
Nick Fuentes had a public meltdown over there. He was like, I put my whole life on hold for this. Why would you just turn around and just say you lost? Like, we believed you. And it's like, man.
But then tonight you turn around and say, oh, well, I didn't lose the court cases. They said I didn't have standing. It's like,
I'd have standing. What?
We could go look at these.
No, dude, like you straight up lost some cases, bro.
I mean, he lost over 61 of them. But the bottom line is, like I said, when you have poor character and you're a liar and you're sitting up there lying and you're backtracking and you're screwing even over the people that you're supposed to be down with you, you can see where this guy was. I mean, this tonight was this was a bad scene. This was a train wreck for him.
It was, man. It was a train wreck. It was a train wreck. And a plane crashed into the train.
Dude, you could just look at the thing is, you could just look at the demeanor. Like MOT, you could just look at his demeanor. Like that's the thing. The side by side, like that's what.
Oh God, yeah.
That is what killed Biden the first time. Oh wow, I'm just reading. The Harris campaign is calling for another debate. Washington Post.
Nah, of course they are. Of course they are.
Nah, we don't need to. In all honesty, we don't need to see another one of these, man. This is.
No, they're baiting him. They're like, dude, okay.
No. You won the debate, Trump. Why don't you have another one? You sure did beat my ass. Shit, why don't we have another one?
That's funny. But like I said, this is a tough one. The vice presidential debate, I think, should ultimately seal, kind of seal the deal, really, as to what we're dealing with here. I mean, the VP debate. Let's bring on what these presidential hopefuls, their first critical decisions and who they were going to bring forth as their partners here. Let's see how they operate on this stage as well. Let's see.
I love how he just threw Vance out in front of that fucking bus.
He just took Vance.
Classic, man.
You said you see that big Greyhound bus coming down here about 55. Yeah, throw his ass out in the middle of that. Maybe he could stop somebody. Maybe he could slow that bus down.
Pushed him right in front of that Final Destination.
Threw him up in there, Jack. Just threw him up in there, man. I was like, damn. So
this dude was talking about. I mean, dude is literally now claiming immigrants are eating pets. It's like, dude, what is going on?
I mean, listen, it's right wing talking points. I understand he's got to try to, form up his base. but
that tells you he has abandoned the whole. He basically sees this as a turnout election as well. Because the dude has given up on running to the middle. None of that was appealing to the middle other than abortion.
Excellent point. That's exactly what I was going to say. This is a turnout election, and he's hoping that maybe he can talk a lot of craziness and do whatever and keep a lot of people from coming out, and that the turnout for this will be low. And if it's low, then he's got a better chance. If these people come out in large numbers, he's finished. So that's what this is going to be. That's at the end of the day, this is what this is all going to be about. Forget about all these polls that you see right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just forget about it, because you have to add in these new voters coming on.
Turnout matters,
and the turnout. You have to look at that. How this is going to be, and let me tell you something. If this is a high turnout election, these numbers are going to be off by quite a few points.
Not only is it going to be a higher turnout election, it's going to be a higher turnout election where they have to count all the votes. Remember, Donald Trump ruined the Republican scam of stopping the vote count at XYZ o'clock and not really counting the actual provisional ballots. Donald Trump messed up that scam of the Republican Party. He messed it up by making the recount the count. Yeah. Now they have to count every vote. And it's like, remember, the Bush v. Gore case was about stopping counting.
That's right.
Votes. That's what they stopped doing. They stopped when there was a head. Yeah, and it's like, and it's like, that's just where we're at with it. But any last words? You have Alan Lichtman who's doing his review. You have Keith Overman who's doing his review. You got Brian Tyler Cohen who's doing this review. There's a whole bunch of different reviews of the actual debate that's going on. I got to be able to get out of here.
You have Mary Trump, his niece. She up in there tearing his ass out the frame.
Wait, so let me ask y'all this: do you think tonight puts any more like? Do you think it should? Do you see a big bounce in the polls, or do you think it's a close race?
Yes. This is the closer, because people are now humiliated that Trump came on and did exactly what they thought he wasn't gonna do. Remember, he had all this preparation and all this kind of other stuff.
MOT, he got Tulsi Gabbard, remember?
Yes, he did. Tulsi Gabbard.
I thought, they're hiding Kamala Harris. She can't answer any questions. She's going to get exposed tonight.
Where's the policies? They're hiding her. She would be able to come out here. Oh my God.
The same dude who came to pour hash browns at McDonald's are worried about Kamala Harris policy. These fucking dudes are on like an oatmeal cream pie and Star Crunch fucking diet, worried about Democrat policies, and they live in fucking Indianapolis. Like, man, stop this shit, man. Stop.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Fuck out of here, man. Who the fuck are these people, man?
The other thing is,
anyway, listen, man. Listen. My favorite's closed. I think I've heard all I need to hear tonight, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Oh my God.
The thing is, like, this. Like, if you're the hair, I just want to see how they even attempt. I would love to see how Fox even attempts to spin.
Bro,
it's dude, you can't say it wasn't fair. Like, I don't know what the time breakdown was, but I'd be willing to bet Trump may have gotten more time because he got the last word on so many questions. You didn't even have a closing. Like, it's like, dude, what are you running on? Like, okay, the country is horrible and it's going to a third world. And let me go and be in charge. Like, it's just like, dude.
And there's going to be a third world war, and all. I mean, he's running on pure fearmongerism. And
actually, like Dick Cheney did that shit during like the second Bush term. And they was like, you know what? If you elect Democrats, there's going to be another plane flying into buildings and shit. So I mean, there's precedent for this type of.
But here's the thing.
Not at the top of the ticket, though.
But here's the thing. George Bush ran on he still had some 9/11. He still had some goodwill from that. But then he also ran on like gay marriage and stuff like this, like culture war issues, and he got reelected. And
he did put it on the ballot in all 50 states, which in turn they could turn around and organize, and they got their marriage right. So he did get his second presidency, but by having that second presidency, they really came back and got their right.
Dude, like I said, the fact that the Harris campaign is already asking for a second debate.
But it's genius, though. It's genius.
It's perfect because it's gonna be like, you don't want to have a second one, like you don't want to do it again, like because you're putting the ball back in his court of like, yeah, we'll do it again if like people aren't interested, like, and you're gonna make Trump have to say no, I'm not interested, like, because like once again, it plays against him because he always wants to look like, oh, I won't back down from a challenge. It's like, dude, this thing looks so bad because what did Biden in the first time was it was the sound of his voice, and then when you looked on the side to side of like the screens and seeing their reactions, like this dude, if you just put it on mute and just watch the debate, like you could just tell from Trump's reactions that he was not doing well. The dude never smiled, like the dude looked confused at times, and then there are even instances like when she literally said something like, oh, like we negotiated a border bill and then you killed it. And he literally shakes his head in agreement. I'm like, dude, like you're shaking your head, not saying anything. Like, yeah, I'm like, you're admitting to lie. Dude, there's no way you can spin this. Like, I just, like I said, the thing they talked about earlier, debates are good because the clips that you use in debates, they get played again. They get memed, they go all over the internet. Like I don't see this. This was a clean sweep.
Let me tell you, the fact checking folks,
man,
PolitiFact and all these guys, they are going to have a roiling good time on this, bro. They're gonna be whacking away at this, man, like a bulldog hitting on a Virginia ham, bro. They're gonna be tearing.
That's gonna be like everything else. It's just like ignore, mischaracterize, and that's just it.
Man,
I mean, like this is what I don't understand about this, right? I never hear any criticism from these criminalistic pieces of shit who fucking sold all the shit in the fucking community, but everybody give a fuck about these people who actually went to jail over the shit. I've never heard nobody say, what about these people who sold this shit to their own fucking people? It's just like, when people be sending me this Bumpy Johnson clips and shit, and you see these black pieces of shit who's like, well, that's what black people was looking out for each other, man. I'm like, do you not understand that they were selling dope in their own fucking whatever, man? It's just like, bro, at the end of the day, that's one side of it. In order to get into those jail cells, you had to break the law in order to be able to do so, man. And no one cares about those people selling shit. It's only
how are you going to? But here's the thing: how are you going to use that against her? But you're going to completely ignore it. She brought up the Central Park 5. Like, how are you going to
Doesn't even matter, man.
You're going to hold that against her that you really don't even have evidence on and completely ignore it. And then she brought up too, oh, you got sued for this. It's like, dude, Trump didn't even say anything to these people.
He was deliberately not renting places to black people.
No,
he got sued for the shit. Okay.
He did not even throw out any sort of it's like, dude, how are you going this
no counter argument, didn't even flinch about it, just took the shit on the chin.
No policy. It's like, dude, how are you going, oh, I'm gonna appeal to black men, but it's like, dude, like she brought that up, you didn't refute it. He was like, oh, all of them pled guilty. Yeah, they pled guilty because they were forced to sign confessions. It's like, dude. Then it's like, oh, we bring up the fact that also you were discriminating against black folks as far as renting. You didn't even dispute that. And the only thing you ever said about black people is, oh, well, black jobs, this and that. And it's like, dude, why are you voting for this guy? Like, what policies are going to help you?
Trump is nothing but an emotional support animals for dudes who clearly ain't got no fucking thing going on in their fucking life. That's all he is, man.
Man,
he's just a representative of a rich guy who was handed money, like they think they're gonna be handed reparations, and all of a sudden they're gonna get control of the hood and the fucking community. The only thing we gotta do is just work for everything, so that way they can mutiny us out of our own shit the moment that
somehow it's going to get America. But let me get the fuck up out of here. Got any last words to go on?
Hey, listen, MOT. Thanks for inviting me up. This was this was a good breakdown, and I was glad to be here tonight. Thank you.
All right, Renaissance man. Any last words?
No, this is like I said. I'm waiting on the spin machine.
Oh man. Man.
Oh wow. MOT. Taylor Swift just endorsed Donald Trump. Kamala Harris for president. Like,
of course.
Taylor Swift just like they were planning this thing. Like, and she's literally got a picture of her with a cat because the whole cat. Like, dude.
You know she's gonna do a concert in like one of these rural areas and shut it the fuck down.
Dude, wow! Like they've been planning that. They have been planning. Wow!
Of course, you know Beyonce's on speed dial. Can't wait to do like a song with Kamala. It's it's like all these dudes, the ones who don't participate, they're still trying to figure out how they're going to benefit of everybody else's local situation being great and them still staying in fucked up areas. Still trying to figure out how you about to benefit off of everybody else's work.
Dude,
it ain't gonna work, man. It doesn't work like that.
This might have been a knockout punch.
It is. This is bad. This was a bad showing. This is there was nothing good or positive about what happened in that. Nothing.
Yeah. I just
you can't spin what happened. You can't spin what happened. Not tonight.
You have to look at this and wonder, did like you could clearly tell Kamala Harris prepped for the debate. Like she had it's like, dude, Trump, what did you actually prep for any of this stuff?
Bro, he was like he rolled out of bed. He probably went about his whole normal day. Like, hey man, what's today? Today is the debate day. Are you sure? Yeah, pretty certain, bro. I didn't prepare anything. We know, sir. We know. Yeah, so he was like, so you just gonna show up there? I'm like, all right, so what do we got? We got Aurora, we got Springfield, Ohio, we got Mexicans everywhere and Venezuelan gangs.
Dude,
got it.
Tonight may have put Florida in play. It was already some polls showing 2 points. Like this was so bad. This might put I'm just curious. I want to see what the next 48 hours is going to look like. I want to see what the spin looks like from the right, and then I also want to see what the fundraising looks like.
Yeah,
because you can't tell me after tonight she doesn't raise. If as many people watched it and they really hit the ground running in the next 48 hours, you could see another $40 million, $50 million in donations.
Oh yeah,
if you play it right.
Yeah.
But
who is about to donate their money to Donald Trump after that debate? Who the fuck is about to do that? Who?
People with money to burn. MOT explains the Democratic Party to a T on economics. He be 100%. Republicans don't like to share the wealth, and they use negativity and so-called morality for votes. Exactly. Culture wars. And then when you go and look at how the actual economy performs, you're just kind of like, wait, why are these people like, I'm voting on the economy like it's a pocketbook issue? It's like, dude, wait, like,
nah, man,
wait,
I can't fuck with that. Because if not anything else, there is and look, it's very obvious. Most black people live in what type of areas? Not conservative areas. They live in liberal areas. Like when black people start talking about conservatism, they talking about, oh, the status of the family. And here's the status of the family, motherfuckers. The status of the family people are dudes who have no fucking family.
Yeah.
And worried about the outcomes of liberal women, what they want to have with this so-called mythical black family shit, man. That shit be dumb as fuck. Like, consistently worried about women not fucking acting right. So that way they can be impregnated by your broke dumb ass, man. What kind of shit is this, man?
But here's the crazy thing. If that's what you really want, like she's actually giving you a path into that. It's like, okay, You know the economy performs better. It's like, okay, if you're a first-time home buyer, I'm gonna give you $25,000 for a down payment. It's like, dude, at that point, you could, if you really want to run that whole, okay, well, I just want a submissive woman. It's like, dude, go out here, find a job. If you really had your way, they try to make any sort of schooling free. It's like you have the down payment on the house. Like, dude, like that's your ticket if that's what you actually want.
Yeah.
That's the wild thing.
I mean, man, like this fake ass black conservative equal Keisha act right. I'm gonna accept you, but you gotta stop with your liberal ways and just settle for a conservative like me. Like what the fuck? Sick and tired of these guys. Man. Sick and tired of them. But I gotta roll out, man. Thank
Yeah.
you for coming out, Renaissance, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming
Now I'll
out,
catch
man.
you later.
All right, cool. All right, later. Have a nice one. All right, man. That was the debate. I did the coverage. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but make sure you participate in the election. Make sure that you register by the time that you're supposed to register, so that way you can participate in the process itself. I think I was pretty much spot on that Trump was going to do Trump. The spin meisters and doctors are going to be able to say Trump won for some dumbass reason, and we know what we saw, and we know why we saw it. So with that said, I want to thank you guys for coming through. The man, tomorrow you guys have a really nice day. Peace. Yep, I did see that. Taylor Swift did post that she was supporting. Yeah, that's what it is, man. But hey, listen to these fake black conservatives light themselves on fire tomorrow. Maybe Black Pill Daily with BGS Idmore can talk about the actual debate. Who knows? Thanks so much. You guys have a really nice night. Make sure you like the video on the way out. Peace.